Dominique DePrima, host of First Things First, weekday mornings, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580. And I'm inviting you to join us on Wednesday, January 7th, as we broadcast live from Perry's Joint on the one-year anniversary of this horrific and devastating fire. We're remembering those we lost, celebrating the heroes and sheroes who answered the call, and honoring the resilience of neighbors who are determined to rebuild together.
I've been a strong black woman a long time, and I can't just break down now.
Hear the stories of survival, the voices of recovery, the spirit of community that the fire couldn't destroy, and yes, the angst of those who still do not know where they go from here.
Yeah, where am I gonna go?
At KBLA Talk 1580, we don't just cover the story, we're part of this community, and we've done our level best to hold those responsible for this fire accountable. And 1 year later, we're still standing together.
It is my hopes that black people will rebuild those homes.
So join us live at Perry's Joint, 2051 Lincoln Avenue in Pasadena, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Wednesday, January 7th, as we commemorate the 1 year anniversary of the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire. Because some stories demand to be remembered.
This too shall pass.
This KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall is sponsored by LA Fire Justice.
Higher and higher. Yes, indeed. John Wood Jr. is in the studio. Hey. He is a colleague here at KBLA Talk 1580. Got his own show, the Reconstruction Project. He's I don't know, soon to be author, political candidate.
Well, one never knows what the future may.
Yeah, well, I was referring to your track record.
Oh,
but
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you may run again.
Taking it back a little bit.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
and
once and maybe future.
Braver Angels.
That's right. National Ambassador for Braver Angels. America's largest grassroots cross-partisan organization bridging the political divide in communities, institutions, and even in politics.
How's that going?
Well, depending on where you're looking, the community level work is always inspiring because, you're dealing with ordinary folks who, they want to work together. They want to see the best in each other. And sometimes they just don't have the tools, the context to be able to do that. Right. And so, I have the opportunity to, have something of a ringside seat for that kind of work taking place in local communities, college campuses, and community organizations. And so that's always inspiring. On the sort of national political level, of course, it is a slightly more depressing picture, as you might imagine.
I mean, the thing about it, John, is, Braver Angels, always thought it was a Republican organization because the people that I've met through you that were part of it were Republicans, but you said, no, anyone can join.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about creating better communication and sort of more decorum.
Well, better communication, stronger relationships, I think is the way I would put it on a human level, rooted in deeper understanding of one another's lived experiences. Our leadership, by the way, is evenly bipartisan. Majority of our members are actually Democrats, but it is a bipartisan organization. And to sort of build pathways for actual collaboration, both on the level of local community issues all the way up to national policy issues, on the foundation of those stronger relationships of trust and communication. And so, it's sort of translating the methodology of an almost family therapy kind of approach to kind of mediating disputes across the partisan divide and trying to transform that into, again, pathways for actual progress on issues facing the American people. So that's really the scope of the work right there. And we've been doing that since the aftermath of the 2016 election, and that work continues.
And, of course, today is the 5-year anniversary.
It's a membership organization, too, for anybody who's interested, $1 a month. And, unless you want to give more. But I encourage people to check it out. Okay, plug over.
BraverAngels.org.
BraverAngels.org. That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, so 5 years ago today, we had the ultimate non-decorum situation. We had the attempted coup, some people like to call it a riot on the Capitol. All those folks have been pardoned. That instigator, one of the main instigators of that, is now the president again. And it seems like sort of the opposite of your mission, Braver Angels, is the way things went down on January 6th of 2021. How do you, I guess that's part of what you're referring to when you say the national scene may be a bit more depressing.
Yeah, I'm just referring to the whole stew of things, but you're right that January 6th was a nadir, for American democracy. On multiple levels. On the one hand, there's the cultural polarization that establishes a context in which, people trust neither their government nor their neighbors. And when communication sort of becomes something that we lose faith in, when democratic process becomes something that we lose faith in, we turn to, potentially people turn to violence. And that is what we saw on January 6th. And then you have the willingness of certain people in power to exploit that for their own ends, right? The breakdown of trust in the electoral process, and wherever you stand on it, it is a bipartisan issue in different contexts. Because many folks didn't think that Donald Trump's election was legitimate in 2016.
And a lot of people don't think that Trump's, honestly, they just don't run around saying it. Yeah. But a lot of people don't think that Trump really legitimately won in 2024.
Well, that's correct. And so what that means is that there's a cross-partisan crisis of confidence in democracy. This is an issue that Braver Angels has actually tried to convene folks from each side to work on directly. But the fundamental point is that society, absent some reversal, is maybe shifting somewhat in a direction to where people are trusting less in democratic process and more in just sort of raw power as the reality by which American society is governed.
Perfect. That's a perfect segue into Venezuela, isn't
I
it?
figured. I figured. Yeah.
That is. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll get there.
It is deeply disturbing.
You said absent some reversal. Do you see that happening? I mean, it seems like we're kind of going down a dark well from which there may be no recovery. But on the other hand, we came back from the McCarthy era. So,
right. Yeah. No, we did. We did come back from the McCarthy era. I think that my hope is found in history and precedent in our society. I mean, I do think that there are these pendulum swings that you can identify in American history that do nevertheless ultimately give way to the better angels of our nature as pertains to our commitment to democracy. But the thing is that you can't take that for granted. Ultimately, the people have to rise up, remember and reassert the values of democracy, and there does have to be leadership in that direction that's compelling. So I don't know if we've altogether seen that yet, but I do have. Let's just say I have faith. In the American people and us and you and me and the people listening.
I mean, I think we model it very well. You and I agree on almost nothing, but yet we're friends. Yeah. I mean,
I think the more
politically we agree on almost nothing. I think socially we probably agree on a few things.
Yeah. I think the more specific we get in terms of policies and stuff, you and I start to disagree. But I do think that a very, very progressive Democrat like yourself and somebody who basically considers himself to be a conservative Republican like myself. We still, I think, are both commonly anchored in the democratic values that I'm talking about, right? Fundamental principles of self-government, whereby a people are able to engage in a process of shared power through reason and electing representatives who are bound to the Commonwealth and to representing the public interest, as opposed to organizing society in a way that is meant to simply reinforce the edifice of one man or one faction's pure power, right? Yeah. That is not the American idea. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, progressive or conservative, that is not the thing to which we aspire, or should be. Should not be.
Yeah, I have to process that. We're going to continue this conversation when we come forward, because I'm saying that because I've been talking with a couple of people, other people I know who are progressives and who are Republicans, and they seem to twist themselves into a pretzel, jump through hoops, and do backspins to justify what this president is doing, and do not seem to be at all disturbed by the strongman authoritarian bent that not only he but the Republican Party seems to be taking. So I gotta think about that. We'll talk about it when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
KBLA Talk 1580 is pleased to partner with the Empowerment Congress once again for their 34th annual summit. The summit's theme is From Vision to Action, a forum to unlock participatory democracy, and will feature a nonpartisan gubernatorial candidate forum focused on issues of importance to the African American community. The summit is the signature public policy-oriented observance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy during the national 3-day holiday weekend that celebrates his life. This year's summit will be held on Saturday, January 17th, 2026 at the California Science Center in Exposition Park from 9 to 11 a.m. Admission is free, but registration is required at KBLA1580.com. All major announced candidates for California governor for the Democratic and Republican Party nominations have been invited to participate in the candidate forum, which will be moderated by Tavis Smiley. An all-star panel of journalists will pose questions to the candidates, and the forum will be broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580. This is going to be a big year for local, state, and national politics. The political pulse of 2026 beats on KBLA Talk 1580.
Where will 2026 take you? With a skills-based education from University of Maryland Global Campus, it could take you toward your next success. An accredited state university, UMGC helps working adults like you learn the skills you need for the career you want. And with no application fee through February 11th, there's no better time to start. Choose from more than 135 degrees and certificates in career-relevant fields like business, cybersecurity, healthcare, and more. Plus, UMGC offers online and hybrid classes, no-cost digital resources in place of textbooks for most courses, personalized support, and lifetime career services. And with transfer credits and scholarships for those who qualify, UMGC can help you take a leap forward no matter where you are on your education journey. Classes start soon. Apply now and get your application fee waived through February 11th. Visit umgc.edu. Certified to operate in Virginia by Chev.
It all comes down to this, folks.
Yep, the entire season is on the line. But my throat has officially thrown in the towel.
Sounds like you need Vicks VapoCool drops. They're max strength and vaporize sore throat pain.
Whoa! These VapoCool drops hit fast.
Speaking of fast, did you just see that play?
Yeah, he vaporized that ball.
That pun should have come with a penalty.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline nasal spray?
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DePrima on First Things First.
John Wood Jr. is here. So we were talking about how, stemming from your work with Braver Angels, but also just kind of the way you approach politics in life, that we, John Wood Jr. and Dominique DePrima, do agree on these basic democratic principles in terms of people's right to self-determination, their ability to have a voice in their own governance, kind of pretty much what's in our Constitution. And and we saw, of course, this past weekend, our government go in and kidnap a sitting leader, no matter what you think of him. He was being recognized by the people of his country as the president. And we kidnapped him, and now he's in prison in New York. And, of course, I get into conversations with some of my Republican friends. I don't have too many, but a couple of them. And so what happens if China decides that, that Trump is a criminal or a dictator, and they could kidnap him and Melania? How does that work? Well, no, it's different because Trump was duly elected. So you say. A lot of people don't believe that. If you look at the statistical probability that he could win every single swing state and counties that the Republicans have never, ever won before in the history of ever, very small. A lot of people don't believe that. So I guess what I'm asking you is, do you truly believe that there are a sizable number of Republicans that even believe in the Constitution anymore, that even cherish those democratic principles that you were talking about? Because I don't see it.
Yeah, I think that the vast majority of Republicans do see themselves as caring about the Constitution and the rule of law, and that there's actually a substantial degree to which many Republicans will argue for the support of Donald Trump on the basis of the idea that Donald Trump is fighting for those values. Now, do I agree that that's what Donald Trump earnestly represents? In short, no, I do not. I also think that there are a lot of Republicans who are either afraid of the president or who have deep and serious misgivings about this approach to politics, who nevertheless have just sort of made the calculation that, but if this is the price we have to pay in order to prevent other things that we feel are even greater threats. Well,
that's like the Christian nationalist argument. Well, if we can get rid of abortion, if we can, get rid of all these black people, then it's worth it.
Well,
just today they added another.
Click on that statement, but But I mean, but fundamentally, you're pointing at the right kind of thing, which is just that these are the compromises that people oftentimes feel themselves compelled to make in politics, the lesser of two evil sort of.
Because
notion.
I'm thinking of the drug boats right now, the so-called drug boats, the fishermen boats, whatever they are, boats that don't even have the capacity to get to the United States, being bombed with no indictments. No investigation, no due process. Now you're dead. We're up to 100 people we've bumped off that way.
Yeah, right. So, obviously, international law is not a thing with this with this administration. Beyond that, and you know me, I try to be very judicious, and I rarely do I invoke this kind of language, and yet it's like. The imperial presidency really is a thing at the moment, and maybe it's always been a thing. I mean, if you think about it, I was shocked when I woke up and I saw the headline that Maduro had been captured. I was like, hey, what do they mean captured? What y'all
that's and all of these news agencies are slavishly using the word captured when in fact we abducted him.
Well,
and the first lady.
Now,
it's not like he was on the run. Capture means someone was running from you and you caught them. He was presidenting, and we went and abducted him.
He was presidenting, right? And like you said, I mean, we can make strong arguments that his presidency isn't legitimate.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like Maduro. That's not the issue.
He's still acting in that capacity,
right?
Now, what I was going to say is that my initial reaction was shock that this had happened. And then I thought about it, and I was like, well, in a way, like this not only isn't entirely unprecedented, but is almost kind of normal. He's Noriega, and you think of Saddam. Obviously, the United States has a fairly long track record of toppling.
Regime change and meddling in other people's countries and putting in puppet governments.
Right. But here's the interesting difference, and I think troubling difference. Maybe there are a couple, but the one I'm thinking of, I saw somebody on X say something sort of interesting. He said, I'm old enough to remember when, the Bush administration toppled Saddam and people were accusing George W. Bush of going into Iraq for oil. The Bush administration would say, no, we're doing this for freedom and democracy. He said, now you've got people, throwing questions at the president like, well, what are you going to do in order to reestablish free and fair elections? And you basically have the Trump White House say, no, trust us. We don't care about democracy. This is just for the oil, right? I heard Stephen Miller on my way over to see this morning, Dominique.
It's too early for Stephen Miller. I can't before noon.
Stephen Miller is allotted pretty much any time of day, but he was he was relishing in the idea that the United States is in charge of Venezuela. But what he's not really saying is that the United States of America is sort of committed to reinvigorating any sort of a democratic process in Venezuela. Now, by the way, I'm not saying we should be, because I don't believe we should be in the business, necessarily of regime change or nation building. So
yeah, but if you kidnap the president, there's something else has to happen after that.
Right. But Miller went on a tangent about abandoning the sort of neoliberal post-World War II order. And Jake Tapper was kind of confused by that. He's like, why are you talking about post-World War II, X, Y, and Z? But what Miller was getting at is that, this is the United States of America abandoning the sort of long-standing commitment to democratic norms internationally in favor of just, he didn't use the word imperialism, but his wife sent out a tweet talking about taking over Greenland and stuff, in favor of a kind of Trump-style Monroe Doctrine where we are just taking over, territories.
Well, he calls it the Donroe Doctrine. He's calling it the Donroe Doctrine. So yeah.
Yeah, right. And so, in the past, American interventions have at least been justified on the basis of our democratic ideals. And again, I don't think that stuff was good. But at least there was a commitment to those ideas internationally.
At least we pretended that we were doing it to spread democracy.
And that commitment was both international and domestic, right? And so on every front, you can argue that the trend is going in somewhat of a different direction here in the current,
plus I don't recall us ever threatening 4 or 5 or 6 countries all at once. Usually it's regime change. We're dealing with now we're talking Greenland. We're talking Colombia, Cuba.
Right. Trump and Rubio, man, they went down the hit list. In that press conference. But it is wild that even Europe is not. Even Western Europe is not spared when you think of the
I think that's
Danes
new. I think it's new for the U.S. to go after a country that is white governed.
Denmark and Canada,
We typically do not do that. So it's usually Latin America and Africa.
Right, yeah. Now,
Asia sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm not trying to anticipate any action in that direction. But, one thing is clear is that the administration relishes its unpredictability, and they are just as comfortable threatening our friends as our enemies, right? And so it is a brand new world in this sense, but maybe in a way a more honest
if it's purely transactional, do we even have friends or enemies? Is it? Because a lot of people are surprised that he's not putting in not trying to put in the opposition government. He's trying to work with the vice president, which if you hated the Maduro government so much, why would you do that?
Right. So this gets back to the point about there not being. Our not being over there to sort of reinvigorate any kind of a democratic, standard in Venezuela, and again, not saying that we should be, but yes, the calculus is driven in a very transactional sort of way. I just zooming out from Venezuela, I would like to see a global society in which, with respect for the integrity of everybody's approach to government and governing their own societies, the United States of America stands with credibility as a beacon for democracy and for a conception of liberty that values the rights and freedoms of the individual and of the powers of self-government. And it's hard to say that we represent that in the world today in the way that we have at least aspired to do in the past.
John Wood Jr. is my guest. It's time for news, traffic, and sports, and we're going to keep this going on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela.
There's not a war. We are at war against drug trafficking organizations. It's not a war against Venezuela.
On NBC's Meet the Press, Rubio called Maduro the head of a drug cartel and said America is enforcing oil sanctions while continuing strikes on suspected drug boats in the Caribbean. South Carolina midwife Dr. Janelle Green Smith, known as the Locked Midwife, has died from childbirth complications. A fierce advocate for Black maternal health, her passing highlights the ongoing disparities in care. A GoFundMe is helping support her husband and newborn. And former NBA star Matt Barnes and model Ananza Sims are officially married after a surprise ceremony. The couple, who share 2 children, reconciled after a rocky year and celebrated with an intimate wedding featuring their son, Ashton. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers held on for a 1-point win over Golden State Monday night at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Chris Dunn's 2 free throws with 42 seconds left held up for a 103-102 victory. 24 points and 12 rebounds for Kawhi Leonard. The Lakers are on the road tonight in New Orleans. Top 5 women's college basketball teams in this week's top 25 rankings: UConn, Texas, South Carolina, 14-1 UCLA, and Oklahoma. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford finished the regular season leading the NFL with 46 touchdown passes and 4,707 passing yards. Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua led the NFL with 129 catches. In case you're curious, Stafford's 46 TD passes is not an NFL single-season record. Peyton Manning holds the record with 55 TD passes in 2013 when he was with Denver. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Looking for something new? Try fencing, the Olympic and Paralympic sport that mixes speed, strategy, and fun. It's like chess meets cardio. Quick feet, quick decisions, and a satisfying beat when you score a point. Kids, teens, and adults can start anytime. No experience needed, and many clubs have loaner gear. Coaches teach fundamentals and safety from day one. Find a beginner class near you at usafencing.org/tryfencing. That's usafencing.org/tryfencing.
Picture this, you're on a date, and then bad breath happens. Confidence gone. Here's the truth. Most gums and mints are just bad breath Band-Aids, but not Zellman's Minty Mouth. The functional breath freshener you swallow. Tiny dual-action capsules with mint on the outside, parsley seed oil inside, clinically tested to fight the toughest offenders, even garlic and onions. It's only available online. Go to Zellmans.com, Z-E-L-M-I-N-S, Zellmans.com, code FRESH for 15% off.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. For 40 years, I have had the privilege, and I don't use that word lightly, the privilege of sitting down with presidents, world leaders, authors, artists, activists, the folk who shape our world. Thousands of conversations, tens of thousands of questions. And somewhere along the way, I realized that the art of conversation is dying. So here's what I'm going to do about it. I am now going to teach what these almost 40 years have taught me. How to have conversations that matter. 6 courses, from the anatomy of a great conversation to generous listening as a superpower to handling difficult exchanges without losing your dignity or your mind. Go to TavisTalks.com right now. That's TavisTalks.com. Download the free guide, see what's coming, sign up to be the first to know when we launch the series. Conversation is a skill, and like any skill, it can be taught. I'll see you in class.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
Okay. I just want to remind you, I know we have the spot running, but tomorrow we are broadcasting from Pasadena in commemoration of the 1-year anniversary of the Altadena Eaton Canyon fires. I'll be there. James Farr will be there. We'll be talking to a lot of folks from the community and organizers and resources. And so I hope you'll join us there. We're going to be at Perry's Joint tomorrow for the whole show, 6 to 9, live. So you're welcome to drop by for a minute or an hour or 3 hours. We'd love to see you there. And this is a story we are committed to. We said we would keep the information and the focus on Altadena, so we're making good on that promise. Yeah. John Wood Jr. is my guest. We're talking about what's happening in our country right now. And all of this conversation about the values of the Republican Party and who's, being intimidated and who's all in on this authoritarian, fascist, arguably fascist regime. Is it starting to split? I mean, you see the Marjorie Taylor Greene defection. Apparently the, whatever that shaman guy was, the guy with the horns.
Oh, the QAnon shaman.
The QAnon shaman is running for office in Arizona and has apparently come out against Trump. And is there...
Yeah. Well, there are splits in the Trump coalition, and probably more than there have been in the past. And it's over a couple of different things. I mean, one, certainly Epstein and just the slow
and the millions of pages now. They're saying.
Yeah, the slow walking of the release of the files, the heavy redactions, and just the things that have come out that sort of drip by drip, sort of seem to show Donald Trump's relative closeness to Jeffrey Epstein, whatever that does or does not mean ultimately in terms of anything he may or may not have been culpable with. But the connections seem to be there at least. So there's Epstein, there is interventionism, right? Thomas Massey is, strong libertarian in Congress, Trump critic and so forth, Rand Paul to a degree, but just the idea that, a lot of particularly libertarian-minded Republicans and independents voted for the Trump administration precisely because they thought Donald Trump would not be sort of, wading into, foreign conflicts.
Well, he said America first. He said getting out of forever wars, and it looks like we've just started at least one, if not two.
Yeah,
Nigeria has, the potential for forever entanglement because you're talking about fighting. Really, if they're really trying to protect Christians, then they have to fight Al Qaeda.
Right.
And Venezuela. I mean, that's a swamp for sure.
There's the action in Iran, which Tucker Carlson.
Never mind that. Right.
Tucker Carlson was strongly,
Israel.
And then the Israel sort of. Dynamic is strongly
dynamic
tied
is
to
a very diplomatic way.
I specialize in diplomatic words.
Yeah, well, the fact that he's basically letting Netanyahu run him, this president.
Yeah, the Israel dynamic is strongly tied to all of that. So you certainly have, a number of Trump supporters who have a definition of America first that does not involve getting involved in the affairs of other nations, certainly not militarily, right?
And it doesn't involve giving $40 million to Argentina.
No, it does not. And so you have these splits in different...
Billion, I should say.
You have these splits in different directions. And of course, Donald Trump is wild because he insults everybody. He's willing to insult his own people from time to time.
Yeah, his own people, meaning MAGA. Yeah,
but the
only one he won't insult is Melania. He's scared of her. As he should be.
Right, as he probably should be. But of course, Donald Trump is not running for re-election, and if he does find himself running for re-election, it's because he's taken we've suspended the Constitution more or less outright at that point, and he doesn't really have to worry about polls in the same way. Again, not predicting that, but the very fact that the words escape my lips suggest the degree of my confidence. I think the idea that certain folks would want to just hand over power. No, I'm not trying to be alarmist. It's just to say though that even my own confidence in the willingness of the leaders of our government to fully shepherd the integrity of the Constitution and the electoral process has suffered, and it is my hope that ultimately and because it'll need to be this way, that the coalition that eventually emerges to reinforce the foundations of our democracy culturally and technically and legally is a cross-partisan one, And I think that you can start to see some of the makings of that in some of these fissures and in some other places. But we're in a difficult place, no doubt about it.
So where's the hope? Who is the Republican leadership or leader that could run for president, that could bring a challenge? Because right now, I kind of think that, Trump is planning to run in 2028. My personal belief is that Burger King and Diet Coke are going to take care of that. That leaves Rubio, who claims he's not, but he's a liar, and J.D. Vance, who is clearly all in. And would be a terror, would be, I would think, even more of an authoritarian in some ways than Trump.
Well, you're not going to get a lot from me in terms of pointing at somebody who is presently on the national stage as a clear standard bearer for the kind of politics I would like to see. There's Rubio and Vance would represent different wings of
the very far right wing MAGA
of the Trump coalition.
Yes.
Once upon a time, there was a version of Marco Rubio that I would have been, somewhat drawn to.
Really?
I think, yeah.
What version is that?
Well, I mean, just somebody who seemed to care about democratic fundamentals. Somebody. Who
I haven't observed that.
Well, I mean, Marco was always a highly astute.
He's smart, no doubt. He's smart.
I thought at least sort of had a commitment to the basics, so to speak.
The only commitment that I've ever seen him have is getting revenge on Cuba.
Yeah, that's a part of.
He's like an old kung fu movie.
That's a big
part of. You killed my father.
Well, that's a part of his history, his family's history. I can respect and appreciate that, but.
That's defense of fascism. The Batista government was a fascist government. So if that's your portfolio, then you're not defending democracy. You're defending authoritarianism.
Right. You'll remember once upon a time, of course, Rubio was sounding the same sorts of alarms about an ascendant Donald Trump.
Right. That's why he got the nickname Little Marco Rubio.
Little Marco, right? Yeah. He bent the knee as so many others did. So it's hard.
Funny, Mitt Romney bent the knee and it didn't work. Rubio did it.
But Romney ultimately, yes, for a second, but Romney ultimately went out on his shield.
Yeah.
I mean, Mitt Romney ultimately.
First he humiliated himself and then he rebelled and went out.
But the thing is, he could have continued to toe the line. But no, Mitt Romney spoke up. I mean, Mitt Romney marched with Black Lives Matter. I mean, he called out, Donald Trump on just about every conceivable sort of, moral scandal and infraction while he was in the Senate. And Mitt Romney came within a hair of being excommunicated from the Republican Party in Utah before he had to retire because he wasn't going to win re-election. But no, I think Romney actually demonstrated a great deal of courage. Unfortunately, not too many Romneys hanging around. And so, it is. But here's the thing. Ultimately, events will progress in the United States of America that will bring us into contact with reality because actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are delayed. But, if the people wants to be, an authentically democratic society that is committed to the principles of self-government and the norms that underlie that we as a people have to choose that. And if the people begin to choose that, then the leaders will follow.
Well, yeah, I think we're already coming into contact with reality. You see the Affordable Care Act premiums jumping drastically, and folks, at least yesterday I read at least 30,000 in one state alone had already opted out because it's too expensive. You got prices going up because of the tariffs, the realities of these interventions, and they're very costly. We've bombed 7 countries in 1 month.
Right.
I think the reality is pretty much right here.
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, yeah. Now, in any administration, you're going to have good policy and bad. You're going to have, foreign. I mean, the bipartisan reality has been one of foreign adventures, and so even under Obama, and
no
so
doubt.
forth. I know you've been critical of those.
Absolutely,
those but it is it does all feel a little bit different.
We're next level.
Next level because there's a degree to which the very apparatus of the federal establishment itself seems to be effectively privatized, if you will. Donald Trump, from what I understand, sort of the Trump family foundation took in like $54 million in 2024, if I'm correct. In 2025, when he was back in the White House, it took in something like $854 billion, which is just one measure of the degree to which, sort of the apparatus of government has just been sewn into the financial, dealings and interests of the Trump family, and of course the Republican Party, now in a structural way.
And the questions about whether that is even legal are not even relevant anymore. No one seems to care.
Yeah, what happened to the
emoluments
clause of the Constitution? Right?
It's
I mean, these are the very sort of textbook things that the founding fathers were concerned with in terms of restraining the power and authority of the chief executive, of the president, right? So, yeah, I mean, we've run roughshod over, run roughshod over these things. See, the thing about democracy is that it really is one of those things that, there's a degree to which people don't start to miss it until it's gone, or at least.
But
until it's clearly potentially
we both agree that
away.
this country has never actually achieved a multiracial democracy.
There's a degree to which
we had the aspiration,
right? Yeah. So there's a degree to which I think reality forces you to have a certain degree of pragmatism, because you're right. I mean, perfect expression of sort of the democratic ideal, has never been attained, and yet that does not mean
even
that
close.
And yet that does not mean that what we do have by way of progress and by way of the functionality of government must not be defended, must not be conserved.
Oh yeah,
even as we also
that.
preserve the quest towards something more ideal, and so. And I understand that. So, but that does become the danger of the moment to some degree, that we actually begin to think, you know what? I mean, I'm Curtis Yarvin, the intellectual thinker, sort of enigmatic thinker on the right, who's been making the arguments for
enigmatic
monarchy.
thinker, a.k.a. fascist, racist,
actually,
white supremacist.
Well, actually,
weirdo.
And I don't know Curtis, but
I don't either. But I read about what he says.
But I know that he's a monarchist. Right?
Yeah,
monarchist. You
right.
over here talking about fascists.
Right. Yeah.
No, let's take it all the way back. Let's run it all the way back to King George.
Right. Let's go to the old-fashioned.
Let's bring the
imperial.
Fascist. Let's bring the crown back.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, you see. No, there is.
But because he's against democracy blatantly, you're saying that's infiltrating the party, or you because
what I'm pointing to,
paint him as a fringe element.
What I'm pointing to is the fact that the traditional liberalism that is sort of the philosophical underpinning for the democratic idea is one that is being consciously rejected in many parts of American society, and certainly on the right. Now, look, I think that there are ways in which historical liberalism, isn't necessarily like the equivalent of, the gospel, and yet it is the foundation of the American democratic order. And if you're going to sort of run the clock back and say, well, actually, let's revive the argument for monarchy, or some other kind of similarly authoritarian.
I mean, I would
vision.
argue that J.D. Vance is more in the Curtis Yarvin school.
J.D. is more in that.
King Vance.
Well, he seems to sort of be more in that direction. I mean, really, what you have, the monarchy thing is it's still, you don't have too many people say. I'm just giving that as an example of something that's extreme. But nationalism.
But they are saying we might need a strong man. We might need a dictator, which is one click away from that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the nationalist impulse is one that is generally rooted in a non-pluralistic vision of society, and therefore
the white nationalists. Because when you want to talk about black nationalists or whatever, that's a whole.
So
different, that's a whole different.
Right. Although black nationalism does not necessarily see itself as kind of liberal in orientation either. But of course, the difference is that white nationalism has a history.
The difference
of
is that black nationalists haven't made it their goal to exterminate white people, whereas white nationalists generally have a white supremacist outlook.
I do want to point, because I talked. I know Yoram Hazony, and I've had conversations with him, and I've interacted with a number of these folks. I mean, it is possible to be a nationalist without being a white nationalist. It's possible to be a Christian nationalist without being a white nationalist.
Really?
And
I don't see it,
because
I think they'll say it, but that's not how they move in terms of policy.
Well, it depends on who you're talking about specifically. But there is an insurgent white nationalist, faction that's explicit, and I see it every day when I log into my social media account. X under Twitter under Elon Musk has basically become a mass platform for precisely that sort of ideology. But it is one of the fights that you're seeing on the right now, is sort of whether or not to embrace that or reject that. And so, you've got figures like Nick Fuentes on the one hand and Ben Shapiro on the other, kind of duking it out over more or less exactly that issue, with people like Matt Walsh in the middle sort of saying, well, I'm not a white nationalist.
How is Shapiro on the other side? He's a total Zionist fascist.
Well,
and then you got Fuentes, who's like your old-fashioned Nazi. Like, there's not a lot of.
So this is where we get into the weeds.
There's not a lot of space there.
Well, but this is where we get into the weeds of disambiguating between Zionism and white nationalism, right? So you can look at these things as potentially both massively problematic, but I'm saying that there is a difference.
Massively problematic and also very racially hierarchical
between those two things.
Yeah.
Obviously Jewish people have not benefited from, white supremacy, particularly in American history.
American history.
Yeah, right.
Okay. We can do a whole show about that.
Obviously, there's conversation that we could have there, and I have a sense of where it would go. But it's just to say that in the Republican Party, you do have white nationalists who are supporting the current regime, and you do have conservatives and even self-styled nationalists of one kind or another who do reject that. And then you've got people in the middle who are kind of like, well, I'm not a white nationalist, but I'm not too worried about that, right? And so, being a Republican conservative myself, I wander in and out of some of those conversations. Mm-hmm. And obviously, my hope is that the better angels prevail on that side of the equation.
Continuing our conversation with John Wood Jr. when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
My name is Tyrone Owens, and this is my home for 23 years that burned in the fire. Me and my wife, Charlene, we had this whole yard decorated every year.
This was the house that sparkled throughout the entire neighborhood on all the holidays. It's a community that will never be the same due to the negligence of the utility company. So I am pretty upset about that.
We were nowhere near being able to rebuild with our insurance. It's going to cost $1 million to put your house back up.
I want to get back to that point where we were before the fire. I'm starting to get emotional, but I'll work through it. LA Fire Justice has been wonderful for us. They're just caring people. We have all faith in them.
Big ups to LA Fire Justice, who's given us hope to rebuild 100%.
Advertisement. Douglas Foster, 221 East Walnut Street, Suite 100, Pasadena, California, 91101 is the attorney responsible for this ad.
LA Fire Justice is proud to sponsor Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
Okay, John Wood Jr. is here. We just have a few minutes before the top of the hour. Dwight from Compton is on the phone. He wants to talk to you. Dwight, I need the short version, if you would.
Okay. Good morning, Dominique. Good morning, John. I had one question for your guest. Why is he a Republican? Because I see Republicans as oppressors of black and poor people to fatten the pockets of rich Republicans and no benefit to any black person or any benefit to any poor working class person. I'll leave it like that, Dominique. And welcome back, Dominique. I love your show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. There's a bipartisan history in American society of, frankly, sort of, anti-black racism, and without being able to go into further detail.
Yeah, but right now the Republican Party is the party of racists and white supremacists.
Point that I want to make, though, is that the shift that took place with black people moving from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party was what allowed for the more basically sort of pro-black and pluralistic elements of the Democratic Party to overcome the most powerful faction of the Democratic Party at the time, which was the racist white Southern Dixiecrats, right? And so my point is just that parties...
Not sure we've totally overcome it, but okay.
But my point is just that parties shift and change. There's no absolute identity to political parties. It's a reflection of the coalitions that exist within them. And I do think that a lot of black folks have made a little bit of a strategic error in thinking that there's not value in being a Republican or a member of any party in advancing the interests, of black people. Indeed, I think you need African Americans across the spectrum to be able to do precisely that, because that's how you obtain leverage in a democracy. And if you take it back to the 1960s, that was the one period of time where we had significant numbers of black Democrats and black Republicans. And it's no coincidence that that was the era in which civil rights legislation broke through into the mainstream, because we have that leverage. And so there are other reasons for me being a Republican, but just purely on the level of practicality on the behalf of our folks, of black people in America, the practical argument, I think, is overwhelming in favor of there being some black Republicans who are also pro-black community.
John's in my DMs, Big John, saying he acts like the Constitution is being followed, not taking serious what's happening now. He acts like there's someone that's going to stop him, meaning Trump. This phase is going to hurt for a long time because no one is putting up a fight right now in the ruling party. He sounds like a Trump supporter.
Yeah, I'm not sure I completely grasp the direction of the question. I thought he was saying
if you're not a Trump supporter and you're not in support of what they're doing in moving towards authoritarianism and an imperial presidency, where's the fight? How are you fighting back? And who in the Republican Party is doing so?
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I mean, there are people who are complaining, but there's no organized, empowered alternative to either Donald Trump or to his acolytes, so to speak, within the GOP at the moment. That's definitely true. And meanwhile, the Democratic Party, I mean, you see some life in AOC and Mamdani, and meanwhile, Gavin Newsom is clearly planting a flag in the ground, but it's not totally clear that the Democratic Party has got it together either at this stage. So no, I mean, and the thing is, the Trump administration, they make all sorts of mistakes, politically. They there's all sorts of openings that they leave, but they've so wildly changed the game, and everybody else is so fractured that it's hard to disagree with that observation politically. That as of yet there has not been a powerful coalition in either party to emerge. Right,
but John's saying the Republicans are in charge. So if someone's going to push back, that's a Republican.
And Congress
they need to be the ones doing it right now.
Congress is largely rolled over. I mean, I mentioned Thomas Massie, and now Marjorie Taylor Greene, rather fascinatingly, has sort of she's taken a rather, although she's leaving Congress, right?
Yeah.
But she might run again.
She might.
But no, there's not much by way of that. I completely agree.
All right, we're out of time. You have to come back more frequently, John. I always enjoy our conversations.
I will. I do as well.
All right. We are talking with attorney Nana Jomfi next hour after news, traffic, and sports, only right here.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela.
There's not a war. I mean, we are at war against drug trafficking organizations. It's not a war against Venezuela.
On NBC's Meet the Press, Rubio called Maduro the head of a drug cartel and said America is enforcing oil sanctions while continuing strikes on suspected drug boats in the Caribbean. South Carolina midwife Dr. Janelle Green Smith, known as the Locked Midwife, has died from childbirth complications. A fierce advocate for Black maternal health, her passing highlights the ongoing disparities in care. A GoFundMe is helping support her husband and newborn. And former NBA star Matt Barnes and model Ananza Sims are officially married after a surprise ceremony. The couple, who share 2 children, reconciled after a rocky year and celebrated with an intimate wedding featuring